Hi, Stanley. Hi, Margaret. How are you doing? Hope you can hear me. Hi, Margaret. Hope you're doing well. And hello, Martin. Oh, I can just see the top of your head at the moment.
I'm doing great.
Are you doing well, Stanley? Good to see you again. Great to see you. Okay. Oh, we've lost. Hopefully, he'll come back. Hope we haven't scared him. Anyway, I hope you're doing. Hope you're both doing well. Oh, we've got Henry Cameron. He's actually made it at the right time, so that's great. So we just got a few more coming. Okay, so as we wait, I'm going to let the room run when I get my words out. Let the room run for a couple more minutes. See who is joining us. Hello, Henry Cameron. I hope you're doing well. Lovely to see you. Hello, Coranda. Lovely to see you.
Yeah.
Okay, so yes, if you can go into the chat and let me know what you'd like to gain from today's session, or anything else that you want to, if you've got any questions or anything you want to gain from today, go into the chat and put it in now, and that will help me shape today's forum. I'll make sure that I cover it. If it's a really big topic and we can't cover it today, then I'll make sure we cover it at a future forum. So just go into the chat now and let me know what you'd like to gain from today's session. I'm just going to let the room run for another minute or so, and then we will get started. Oh, we've got Martin back again. So hopefully we'll be able to see him. Hello, Martin. Hope you're doing well. Hope you can see us and hope you're doing well, Martin. I can see you now. Hello.
Yes, sorry, I am with you now. Yeah.
And
Put mine in the chat, by the way.
Yes, Corinda. So you put population statistics system. Oh, what do you mean by that?
Like this is for a book. Like this is.
I don't know what you. I don't know what you mean by that, Corinda. So
Like, you know when like this is, like when you prepare,
yeah.
and you like this is, and you got the system that knows about the book, and like the system, when the book is.
So are you talking about you want to know like who's actually buying your book? Is that what
Yeah.
So marketing. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll see if we can cover that. That kind of is a little bit different to what we're talking about today, but in the Q&A portion of the forum, let's see if we can talk about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be, I'll give you some tips regarding that on how to deal with that, Corinda. Henry Cameron says self-promotion, ebooks versus paperback books. Yes, we'll discuss that as well, Henry Cameron. The only hint I will give you, you shouldn't see it as a versus. They both are necessary. And certainly my clients, I insist that we publish via Kindle ebook as well as paperback book. But I'll explain why in the Q&A portion. Okay, so let's get started. A few more stragglers. I'll just have to keep an eye out for them. If I do get a few more stragglers, hopefully I'll see them in the waiting room and I'll let them in. But let's get started. I don't want to delay you guys any further. So first of all, thank you for coming. Let me just share my screen first of all. There we go. Okay, so you can all see this. Put a thumbs up. Excellent. Okay, fantastic. So let me get this started. Okay, so first of all, thank you for coming to the Thought Leader Author Forum. A lot of familiar faces and a couple of new faces here as well. So welcome to the Thought Leader Author Forum. So the forum, for you guys who've been here before, you'll know this, but for anybody new, the forum is in two parts. So the first part, we discuss a particular topic of the day. And today's topic is all about the 3 common mistakes most first-time authors make and how to avoid them. Just to give you an idea, I wrote my first book back in 2015 as a ghostwriter. One of my copywriting clients asked me to write a book for him and threw a load of money in my direction. So of course I said yes, because why wouldn't I say yes? And then I went through 18 months of hell trying to write this book. I'm convinced that I wouldn't even have finished writing this book if it weren't for the fact that I'd spent all the money that my client had given me. So I couldn't even give him a refund now. So I was stuck writing this book. Thank God, because now obviously I love helping people write books. But there is a right way and a wrong way to do it. And I see a lot of people especially people writing the very first time, because they don't know how to do it, they don't really have a structure, they make these mistakes. And there's three very common mistakes I see first-time authors make. They're the mistakes that I made when I wrote my first book, and I've seen many other people make. So if I can show you these mistakes, then you are forewarned, basically. So you can be well ahead of the game when compared to most other people. And then part 2 of the forum, my favorite bit, that is where it becomes an open room. I want you to ask me any questions, give me feedback, speak to each other. This is where you can get the most value and really tailor it to what you need from the forum, okay? So, also, because you've came to the forum live, what you will get is a workbook tomorrow morning. My assistant Joycey, who should be in the crowd, she will send you this workbook tomorrow morning, okay? So feel free to scribble down notes. If you really want to scribble down notes, feel free to do so, but you don't need to. Everything will be sent to you in this workbook. In fact, far more than I can cover today. Everything will be sent to you tomorrow morning. And also, just to thank you for attending Thought Leader Author Forum, you are able to choose one of these incredible causes. I know, very difficult trying to pick one of these. I get that. But you can pick one of these causes and we will actually make a donation on your behalf. So it literally doesn't cost you anything. In fact, what I'm going to do, let me just come out of this. I should have in the background, here we go. Let me put this into the chat now. So while you're listening to me, you can actually click that link. And all you have to do is just pick one of these causes. Oh, there's somebody. Can I just mute whoever? Okay, excellent. There we go. Just pick one of these causes and we will make a donation on your behalf. So it costs you absolutely nothing. And then you can go away for the rest of the day feeling extremely smug because you've done your good deed for the day already. So just go to that link now, make a choice, whichever cause you want to go for, and then we will make that donation on your behalf. Okay. So I decided earlier this week to run a poll. A few of you have been here a number of times. You know I love a poll. I always love seeing what the temperature of my audience is. You know, what are they thinking? So this week, I decided to ask them, what's been the biggest mistake you see from amateur authors? Because even people who haven't written books, they're usually reading books. So what's been the biggest mistake they've seen? So we had 6% said lack of clear focus, 26% said disorganized structure, 58% said editing, proofreading issues, and I had an other for people to put in, and there were various things, you know, images not really working, or I had one gentleman say something along the lines of repetitive, too repetitive, saying the same thing again and again. It's like, what are you doing? You're just trying to create more pages in your book. So I had an other. This was, I'll be honest with you, with some polls that I do, what I'm usually doing is I'm seeing what people are thinking. This one was a little bit of a red herring in that really all of these are an issue, okay? Lack of clear focus is something that really irritates me, and I'm sure it irritates you as well. I'm sure you've read books that just kind of meander around everywhere. You're just thinking, oh my God, can you just stick to one thing? And it's very frustrating. Disorganized structure. Again, it's very frustrating because you have to remember when you're reading books, these kinds of books, non-fiction books that are usually helping you or advising you in some way, you don't want disorganized structure. They're teaching you something. Imagine having a disorganized teacher at school. I bet you didn't like that teacher. I bet it was a teacher that was very organized and can teach you in a very structured way so you actually understood the subject. So all of these things, editing, proofreading issues, if you've got lots of typos, you've got a lot of grammatical errors, if there's no real flow to the prose, it stops you from learning. Instead, your mind goes to the issues instead of concentrating on the content, which is what you should be doing. So again, it stops the learning process. So really, even though I just wanted to see what people said, and it's quite interesting, when I ran this poll about 4 months ago, lack of clear focus was actually the winner, followed by disorganized structure, and then editing, proofreading issues. So it changes whenever I run this poll, it does change. But it's just interesting to see what people think. But the reality is that all of these things are problematic, and all of these things are something that you need to remove, or you should aim to remove anyway, from your book. Because remember, your book is all about helping people. You're either helping them to become knowledgeable about something, or to be able to do something that they weren't able to do before. You're teaching, essentially. And if you don't have clear focus, if you don't have structure, and your book is littered with editing and proofreading issues, it's going to stop people from learning. So it defeats the whole point of you writing the book. And also remember, the other purpose of you writing the book is for personal branding and thought leadership. Well, you're not going to be seen as much of a thought leader if you have a book that meanders everywhere and has loads of editing and proofreading issues. So this is just some of the comments that I got. I've got loads of comments on this poll, but it gives you an idea of what people are thinking. So Clinton says the biggest mistake I see from amateur authors is neglecting thorough editing. Skipping this step often results in unclear writing and grammatical errors, which can distract readers and undermine credibility. The big one here, I should have underlined this bit, is undermine credibility. You need to be seen as the credible expert on a particular subject. I've seen people who've written books and the book has actually undermined their credibility. It would have been better if they just didn't write the damn thing in the first place, which is the last thing that you want. Joe says, when a book goes nowhere and just waffles on, the worst. I feel her pain. I've read so many books like that where I just think, oh my God, get to the point. You definitely don't want that. And Debbie says, and Debbie really thinks like me, she says, I could tick them all because so many people write terrible books. You don't want to be that person, okay? So how do we avoid this? So these are the 3 common mistakes. First one is insufficient planning. By the way, I'm not blaming people for insufficient planning. I think a lot of people don't even realize how much planning they should do. No one really tells them. So most people's idea of planning is sequencing out the chapters, roughly figuring out what needs to go into each chapter, and off they start writing. That is absolutely nowhere near enough planning, as I will demonstrate in a few minutes. The second thing is writing instead of dictating. A lot of people still want to type their books. And I'm going to show you why it's the worst thing to do for several reasons, but I will show you, I'll demonstrate that for you. And the third common mistake is writing and editing at the same time. In fact, actually, I need to change that. I would say planning, writing, and editing at the same time. What a lot of people inadvertently do, and something I did back in 2015 with my first book, is I made a plan which I thought was good enough. Now I realize how woefully bad that plan was. It wasn't extensive at all. And what you're doing is when you're writing a book, you're doing all 3 at the same time. You're still planning, so new ideas are still coming into your head and you're trying to incorporate them. You're writing your book at the same time. And as you're writing it, because you're looking at the words, you're editing as well. You're removing typos and thinking, oh, this will be a better word, or this will be a better sentence structure. You're doing all 3 at the same time. I'm here to tell you guys, whichever idiot said humans can multitask is an idiot. No human can multitask. We'll also get this whole thing like women can multitask. I hate that. Like women are said like, oh, men can't multitask, but women can. And then we're meant to feel good about the fact that we can multitask. I think women are multitasking because it's been forced upon us to multitask most of the time. We're not good at it. No human being is good at multitasking. We are much better at focusing at one thing at a time. And that pretty much leads me on to, this is what it leads you on to going crazy. You have to rewrite things, you have to go back things, you have to remove things and add new things. And this is what leads to absolute overwhelm. That's where I was in 2015, writing my first book. And honestly, I can say hand on heart, if I was writing for myself, I probably would have just given up or said, you know what, this is just far too hard. I can't be bothered. The only reason I carried on is this was a paid job and I'd spent my client's deposit. So I had to now finish this book because otherwise he wasn't going to be very happy. These 3 common mistakes are solved by the 3 stages of book writing. I want you to see book writing in 3 very distinct stages, okay? And they are plan, pen, and perfect. Okay. Now, plan is obviously plan. Pen is the writing stage. Yes, I could have used type there, but if you followed me for any length of time, you'll know that I'm a fan of using mnemonics to try and remember stuff. My brain's like a sieve. You can literally tell me something and then 5 minutes later, I've already forgotten it. So I've learned over the years to help my memory to create little mnemonics, whether it's alliteration, whether it's, acronyms or whatever it is. And then I realized other people are just as bad as me. And then if I show people my mnemonics, it actually helps them as well. So this is a mnemonic that I made. I used alliteration, or they're 3 Ps. I always think of the 3 Ps of book writing. There's plan, pen, and perfect, which is editing. Keep saying that so it goes into your brain. You plan, then you do not move on to pen until you've fully planned everything. And then when you're in pen, you are not editing at the same time. And this is the power of separation. Okay, so let me actually show you how this, because you're probably thinking, okay, that's great, but how does this work practically, Natalia? You're giving me great advice, but at the moment it's all very strategic, but I don't know how I would implement this practically. So this is plan, and plan, this is actually a mind map that one of my clients did. It's actually a piece of software that all my clients use called mind42.com. All my other clients, however, they just house it on their computer. For some reason, Luke wanted to print it out. Lord knows why he wanted to print it out, but it's good actually, because now I have this image that I can show you guys. So he actually printed out his mind map. In fact, let me see. I wonder if I can find that mind map. I can actually show you it. Let's put in Luke's mind map. Oh, there we go. Oh, that was easy enough. I thought it might take me a while to find it. Let me actually show you his mind map, and that way I can zoom in on it. Can you all see this? Just making sure. Excellent. You can't see this, Stanley. Is everyone else can see it? I don't know what's going on, Stanley. You should be.
It's quite small.
But you can't see it. So now I'm zooming up. You can't see it zoomed. Can you guys, Henry Cameron, can you actually?
It's upside down, it looks like. I don't know. It's hard. I'm not sure if it's just the image of the paper you're wanting us to look at, or if it's the actual.
Can you actually see the image, or are you still seeing the slide?
Can see the image.
Oh, okay. As long as you can see the image, yeah. I think once I go in here, you can see it starts getting pixelated. But I just want you. I mean, you don't need to see the actual writing anyway.
Okay.
Unless you're mega interested in Luke's topic, but you don't need. But this gives you an idea of the kind of level of planning that my clients go through when they work with me. So each of these spokes, so for example, here we go, that is a chapter. And then the chapter is broken out into everything that needs to be into that chapter. This is the reason why I love this image and why I now use Luke's mind map to show people is most people are shocked when I show them this. Like, oh, this is how much planning I need to do. Most people don't plan their books, not even a quarter of this. They usually just have a rough idea what needs to go, the main topics that they need to cover in each chapter, and then off they go, starting to write their book. But then by doing that, what happens is new ideas come in. They're still in the planning phase, but now they've basically got 1 foot in the planning phase still, unwittingly. Then their other foot has already got into the writing stage. And while they're writing, they may even be editing as well. And you wonder why people get really overwhelmed because they're now doing so many things at the same time. You need to plan to this level. And what I mean by this level is literally you need to work out what points you need to say in that chapter. You need to add in what else you're adding to the chapter. Maybe you have a quote that you want to use. Maybe you're citing a particular report. Maybe you want to add an infographic or an image to demonstrate a point. Everything needs to go onto this mind map. The best analogy that I give a lot of my clients who come back to me and I look at their mind map and go, this is nowhere near planned enough. And this person is going to have problems when they go into the writing phase. I always say, think of it as a satellite navigation system. So when you get into your car and you're going to somewhere new, so you punch in the postcode or the zip code, and what does it do? It works backwards from where you need to be and gives you every single move that you need to make in the car. It doesn't say, oh, well, that's just a little alley. I won't need to show the driver how to get through there. I'll just show the main roads. Your satellite navigation system doesn't do that. It literally tells you every single yard or meter that you need to travel to get to your destination. That's exactly what your mind map needs to be. As soon as someone tells me, oh yeah, I'll remember that, alarm bells go off in my head. So as soon as someone says that, it's like, oh, I don't need to put that on the mind map. I'll remember. No, you won't. You won't remember. Then you will remember when you're halfway through your book. Now you're going to have to go back and rewrite sections, because this is the thing. Let me just go back to my slides here. This is the thing about books, something I learned the hard way. Okay? Books are not like Lego bricks. I flipping wish they were. It would make my life so much easier. It'd be lovely if you could just take something off one section, go, oh, I want this at a later section. And you know how a child does that? A child just takes a Lego brick off one bit and then adds it onto another bit of it. And it's fine. You can't do that with a book. You move a bit. Now you have to rewrite that section where you put that thing in to make sure that works. You may need to rewrite the section that you've taken it away from because that bit doesn't now work. It really just leads to huge overwhelm. I've seen people almost clinically depressed because they've been working on their book for so long and they're now lost inside of their book. So this is why you need this kind of extensive mind map. And I've seen some of my clients spend 2 months just working on their mind map. And I've been finding that they've been worried. They've been coming to me and they'll say, but I still haven't started writing my book. And I said, don't worry about it. Because when you have this kind of mind map, when you get to the writing stage, the book almost writes itself. In fact, I just want you to guess how, this is, by the way, a 60,000 word book. So quite a long book. Most of my clients are publishing around about 40 to 50,000. This book is actually 60,000, slightly more than 60,000 words. I want you to guess how long it took Luke to actually write this book once he'd planned it. You're probably thinking, I don't know, weeks or maybe even days. He took 13 and a half hours to write this book. And that is why. So people are so worried because I don't know where this comes from, but I think we feel like the only way we're progressing in a book is to say, hey, I've wrote 1,000 words today. Or hey, I've wrote, and we put these stupid benchmarks like that's progress. 1,000 words is nothing. I always think of Jack from The Shining, you know, when he's writing that same line again and again and again. You're not getting anywhere. You can write 1,000 words. It doesn't matter if it's all nonsense. I much rather my clients spend weeks or even months at the planning stage, making sure everything is right. So then when they move on to the writing or the pen stage, as I call it, they just fly. Most of my clients say, I'm amazed how quickly my book just came together. It's like, yes, because you've got your satellite navigation system for your book. So of course you're going to get to your destination. Most people don't have this. They don't have a satellite navigation system for their book, and they wonder why they get lost inside their book, okay? This is just to give you a reminder. Some people do ask me, I've had my clients say, well, how much detail do I need? The detail you need in your mind map is to think like most of you probably talked on stage or at least given some kind of training or something on stage. You wouldn't have written out your entire script and gone onto the stage and read it out. Or if you did, you probably weren't a very engaging speaker because people don't like that. Chances are what you did is you created bullet points in your head. Or perhaps you worked with slides, so you had bullet points on the slides and you expanded on each of the bullet points. That's a level of detail you need. You don't need to put in full paragraphs, because if you put in full paragraphs in here, you're pretty much writing your book. But you do need enough detail that if I just asked you, okay, so if I said, Stanley, I want you to just read that section and expand it out for me, dictate it to me. You should be confidently able to expand on each point without forgetting anything. If you're forgetting something, guess what? You need to put that point into the mind map. It's not detailed enough. It needs to be detailed enough. So if I asked you to dictate something from it, you can confidently expand on each point and dictate it without missing anything. Okay, so that gives you an idea of the level of detail. Next stage, pen. Or I mean, I jokingly call it pen. I'm not saying actually take a pen and start writing on paper. No one does that anyway. But it's just for the alliteration to remind you it's the 3 Ps. You've got plan, pen, and perfect. So dictating. A lot of people are like, I don't think I can dictate my book. It's like, why? Why can't you dictate your book? Well, the reason why you can't dictate your book is you don't have a plan, because you're still planning. You don't have a mind map. Can you see how easy it was for Luke to dictate his book in 13 and a half hours when he's literally got a satellite navigation system for his book, telling him exactly what he needs to say? He just expanded on each point. That's all he did. And that's why he was able to complete an over 60,000 word book in 13 and a half hours. Because all he was doing is he just got his he had a dictation app on his phone, and he just opened it and just spoke. Remember, it's his information, so it's all of his knowledge. He just needed those prompts to remind him what he needed to say next. And that's it. You can even see, I don't know if you can see here, you can even see where he was basically highlighting orange the bits he'd done. So when he came back to it, he knew the bits that he needed to carry on completing. So you can actually see that at this stage, he had done 3, he was in the 3rd chapter, I think. He was halfway through his 3rd chapter and he knew what he needed to do next. So you can even, that's the other thing. A lot of people think like, oh, I need to give myself a day a week to write a book, or I need to assign myself half a day or an afternoon. Friday afternoons is going to be my time to do my book. My clients are literally writing the books when they've got 15 minutes spare in between clients. They don't lose their train of thought, because how the hell can you lose your train of thought when your train of thought is right there in front of you, or in Luke's case, actually printed out and on the back of his office wall? You can't lose your train of thought. So he had such an easy time writing his book. Luke's actually written 2 books with me now because he loves the process so much. He's actually he's dyslexic as well. So he left school without any qualifications. So and if you're sat there, by the way, thinking that, oh, I'm not good enough to write a book, Luke, that's all I'm going to say. This guy left school without any qualifications and he's dyslexic. He's now the author of 2 books because of this methodology. Okay. So I really want to drill into you why dictating is so important. First of all, it'll help you get your first draft done super quick. I've met so many authors, a year later, they're still writing their books and they're not even finished it. They're still on their 3rd or 4th chapter. You need to fly through your book. Doesn't matter how many mistakes are in there in the beginning. You need to get that first draft done because you get this huge dopamine hit. Okay, just knowing it's all out of your head. It doesn't matter if it's clunky at this stage. It doesn't matter if it's clumsy. It doesn't matter if it's littered with typos and grammatical issues. That is the perfect stage. That's the next stage. Remember, you're not even going to think about the next stage. Remember the power of separation. You remain in the pen stage, and that is you need to get the content out of your brain into Word or Google Docs or whatever you're using. You're not even thinking about perfecting it. Dictating allows you to do that. You speak a lot faster than you can type. The second thing is it helps you sound like you. This is what my AI decided an English professor looks like, by the way. This is AI generated and made me laugh. It's like, that's what AI thinks an English professor looks like. More like a ye olde world English professor, I think. But anyway, the reason why I've chosen this image is I'm amazed how many people I speak to on a one-to-one basis. Such lovely people, really friendly, really warm. And then they go and write something and suddenly they're cold and academic and like they've swallowed an English professor. I'm just going, this book doesn't even sound like you, or this article doesn't even sound like you. What happens is, especially with books, what I tend to find is a lot of people fall into this very academic, cold, clinical way of speaking when they're typing, because they feel like they need to. It's like, oh, I'm writing a book. I need to be seen as credible. I need to be seen as an expert. And they fall into this really cold way of speaking. People still need to like you. Yes, they need to respect your expertise and see you as a thought leader in your field, but they still need to like you, and they're not going to like you if you sound cold and academic. When you dictate, that just doesn't happen. It sounds like you because you're talking, you're not typing. So that's the second reason. And the third biggest reason stops you from editing. This is why I'm not a fan of voice to type. So on Word, you can actually dictate and you can see the words forming. I ban my clients from using that. Because the thing is, you can see the words forming. And if you see the words forming, guess what's going to happen? As soon as you see a typo, you're going to want to go back and fix it. As soon as you see, oh, they didn't put a full stop there, that was the end of a sentence, you're going to go back and you want to stop yourself. You're now going into editing. It's just going to destroy your momentum. So the best thing to do is I use something called Otter. They've got an app as well, and you just speak into the app. And I put my phone aside so I don't even look at my phone, or I turn the screen off because I don't even see the words forming. I just want to speak, just like I'm speaking to you. I bet I've already tumbled over a few of my words. I don't remember actually, but I bet I've already tumbled over a few of my words in the last few minutes. It's not like I have a time machine. I can go back and change it. When you're speaking, you just speak. All you're thinking of is, I just need to get my point across. Are people understanding my point? That is all you should be thinking in the pen stage. Not, oh, this could have been a better word, or, oh, I've missed a comma here, or there's an apostrophe that's wrong here. you shouldn't even be thinking of that. It's very difficult to not think of those things when you can see the words. That is why I don't agree with typing, and that is why I don't agree with any dictation method where you can see the words forming. Instead, just use an app where you just record yourself. Or another simple way of doing it is, and some of my clients have done this because they didn't want to use Otter or anything like that, is just go into Zoom, take your camera off, and just record yourself speaking on Zoom. And then you can get the audio files and you can have those transcribed. Either way, you just don't want to see the words. You just want to speak like I'm speaking to you now as just a normal person having a conversation and just teaching something, okay? And then we can move on to the perfect stage, which is the editing, okay? And editors, I found this lovely picture of two cleaners. Don't they look lovely? I think of editors as cleaners, okay? So with editing, what you want to do is you want to sense check it. You don't need to do the job of an editor because that's what a professional editor is for. But editors are like cleaners, okay? So think of you hired a cleaner for half a day, for 4 hours, okay? So say you've hired some cleaners. These lovely ladies are going to come and clean your kitchen. And you leave your kitchen an absolute tip. The sink is overflowing with dishes from the last few days. Everything is all over the place. What are they going to do mainly? They're mainly just going to tidy up. They're not actually going to get to do any deep kind of cleaning because they don't have the time. You've had them for 4 hours. So they're basically just going to go, okay, let's do the dishes. Let's just put everything in its place. And then if they've got some time, they'll probably wipe down the surfaces and just maybe mop the floor and they'll be done. However, if you can do some of the basic tidying up, then that means they can do a deep clean. So if you can tidy up your kitchen, chances are they'll come in and go, okay, well, everything's tidy. So let's have a look at the extractor fan and let's see maybe the filter needs changing. Let's actually bring out things from the cupboards and dust inside there because they've probably not been dusted for months. They can do a deep clean. That's what you want to do with professional editors. You can just hand over your dictated, so at this stage, you can just hand over your dictated manuscript, but then guess what? All the editor is going to do is basic tidying up because they're just going to go, oh my God, well, I just need to fix the grammar. I need to fix all this. If you can just fix some of that for them, then they're so much happier because now they can do what they're really trained for, which is how do I make these words more powerful? How can I make it really hit the mark? That's what you really want an editor to do. An editor that's just doing grammatical errors and typos, you're not even touching the sides of how talented editors can be. I love my editors. It's amazing what they can do with the words when they're given the chance to do it, when you've done the basic tidying up. But the main thing is you only do this after you've done your entire manuscript. Then you go through it, you read it through. And I would give you an extra tip here. Read it aloud. There's something about reading aloud that your tongue trips on bits that are not working. When you've got sentences that are clunky or your tongue just trips, you just find it's like, oh, that just didn't sound right. When you're just scanning with your eyes, you might miss those things. But when you actually read out loud, I've got one client who's doing that right now. He's doing it this weekend. He's put 3 hours in his window this weekend. And what he's going to do is read his entire manuscript out aloud and note which bits just sound wrong when he reads it out. And then we can look at those bits and fix those bits before it goes to the editor. So then when the editor gets his manuscript, they can really do a deep clean of the manuscript and make it shine. Okay? So those are the 3 stages of book writing: plan, pen, perfect. There is huge amounts of power in separation. When you mix these 3 up, that is what's going to lead to overwhelm and frustration. Trust me, from someone who got very depressed for 18 months trying to finish my first book. And then as I started to learn, just to give you an idea, my first book I wrote in 2015 took me 18 months. The 7th book I wrote as a ghostwriter in 2017 took me 5 weeks in total. 4 weeks to plan and a week to dictate out and then sense check it and get it off to my client to go to the editor. And that was a better book than the one that took me 18 months. Okay, so that, I hope that's busted a few myths for you there as well. A lot of people think the more time you spend on a book, it gets better. No, it's not a casserole. A book isn't a casserole that gets better the more you slow heat it. No, it's more like steak. It just turns into rubber. I shouldn't say steak. I'm the vegan publisher, by the way, and I haven't had steak for about 12 years. But there you go. But it's just overcooked. I've seen people working on books for years, and I don't have the heart to tell them the book is absolute nonsense. So don't think the longer you spend on a book that somehow it's getting better. Normally, it isn't. It's usually you want to get your thoughts out quite quickly because then it's coherent. The more time you spend on it, you're adding more elements to it that probably don't work together. Okay. So let me come out of this because I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on this. Okay. So Stanley says eliminating the repetitive mistakes that you see as a common experience that could easily be avoided and using that energy towards success. It's so true. I've met so many people, Stanley, that are so knackered just by writing the book. And then when they're told, okay, now you have to start marketing the book, they don't have the energy for it anymore, Stanley. And I've seen so many authors who've written really good books, but then the book is doing nothing for them because they have no energy left for the marketing and the PR, and because they spend so much of their time and energy just writing the book, and it shouldn't be that way. You know, writing books are actually quite easy when you have this kind of plan, pen, perfect structure. It does take a little bit of willpower. You have to be strict on yourself. You really have to stop yourself from writing your book until you're absolutely sure everything is out of your brain and into a mind map. Then you have to have the willpower to make sure that you write your book in such a way that you're not going back and changing things and editing things. That's why dictating without the words forming on screen works really, really well. And then the perfect thing. A lot of people don't want to do that. They just think, oh, can I just send it to an editor? Yes, you can, but you're spending a lot of money on an editor that it's a waste of money, because now what they're doing, it's like getting a brain surgeon to come in and put a plaster on you. It's like editors are amazing people. They can really make you sound incredible. But if you give them a manuscript littered with issues, then all they're going to be doing is just hiding that out. They're just going to make sure it's grammatically correct, that there's no typos in there, the punctuation is correct, you're adhering to a style guide. They're just going to do the very basics of what they're meant to do as an editor. They don't have a chance to do anything else. If you can do some of the basics for them, then they can really go into your words and make them shine. So it's a really, really good idea to help your editor out, and then they can help you create the best book possible. Okay. So any questions? I'd love to know your thoughts about this. We've lost somebody. Oh, did Margaret have to go? Oh, bless her. Or maybe she had some issues. I don't know. Oh, yes, Margaret says, so sorry, I have to jump off. Bless her. All right, no problem, Margaret. You're probably going to see the replay, but thank you for coming. Okay, so oh, hello, Alan. You sneaked in there. You always sneak in last minute, don't you? Good to see you again, Alan. Good to see you. Stanley, I hope you did. You said, are you screen sharing? I hope you did get a chance to. I don't know what happened there because it seems like everybody else was able to see, but okay. But anyway, any questions regarding this or any feedback, or some of you I know have tried to, you're halfway through writing a book, or Alan, you've already written 3 books. Anything that makes you think that, oh, I didn't know this, or I wish I knew this. Henry Cameron.
This is so great. And, you know, one of the things that really resonated with me, and I just self-published my first ebook, and feedback has been really, really positive. But people are clamoring now for an audiobook version. And it seems to me that by dictating your book, it was really important to me that it be my voice, that it not sound like here I am, you know, sort of amalgamating the wisdom of, you know, whatever I know, the little bit I know about. And so I wanted it to be relatable, and I wanted it to be in my voice. And I had planned from the beginning of doing an audiobook. And so you're right, it was so helpful for me to read back my manuscript so that when I did translate it to an audiobook, it was in my voice, and it was a form and a flow that is reflective of my own voice. So I just want to reflect.
No, I appreciate that. I'm actually looking at, I'm sort of working with somebody at the moment who creates audiobooks, but the way we've always done audiobooks is someone publishes their book first, and then the next stage is we create the audiobook. But the exciting thing that's happening with AI at the moment is it looks like there's going to be some AI that'll be coming out by the end of the year where it's going to really reduce the cost of creating great audiobooks. And I'm wondering now if with all my clients who are dictating, whether that can now actually be used as, it's almost like knocking two birds. Again, I'm using non-vegan terms here. Don't knock birds with any stones, please. Leave birds alone. But the phrase knocking two birds with one stone, that might be a wonderful way, because there's a lot of people, because that's almost at the moment, it's a secondary thing that they need to do is create the audiobook. Whereas my clients can use the dictations and that can turn into an audiobook as well as the main book. That's amazing. You've just now created an audiobook and a book at the same time.
And I need to express, my concerns as an a voice actor professionally as well, is that there is a great danger, it's already happening, where working actors are being put out of work by these AI voices that have a semblance of.
Are you talking about AI avatars now?
Yeah, so I'm talking, so there is an ethical question that must be considered, I think. When I listen to an audiobook, I want to hear the author's voice. I want to hear the author reading their own, and maybe somebody doesn't think that they have the vocal quality or training or capacity to read their own work.
Yeah.
But that doesn't bother me. Those skills can always be acquired.
Yeah.
And so I would urge everyone to consider, if you're going to go to audiobook, either reading your own work and maybe getting a little bit of, vocal training or whatever, which I do. But also, don't worry about that so much. If you're authentic in the voice that you're presenting as yourself, it'll come across, right? You believe in what you've published.
All of my clients who created audiobooks, they've always used their own voice, because it's not, I guess if you write fiction or poetry or some other kind of book, then it may make sense to use a voiceover artist. But bearing in mind that all my clients are writing their books for personal branding, for thought leadership, to get their values and their core mission out into the world, it literally makes no sense to have somebody else read your book, no matter how talented they are as a voiceover artist. So we've never used voiceover artists. I can see what I agree with you there, Henry Cameron, regarding the ethical implications of, I think you're talking about AI avatars who are now reading books. We would never use that, because they wouldn't work. Like I said, we've got people who are writing books of personal branding and thought leadership. It needs to be
give it 5 years. They're getting better and better.
Yeah, I was talking more in terms of, I'm looking at AI at the moment. They can take the dictations and actually polish up the dictations and turn, but it'll be that author speaking, so it won't be be taking work away from a voiceover artist, because they never had that work in the first place. If that
I've used AI as kind of an assistant, just to give feedback on, as if they were a book critic, or so they're looking at it through a particular lens. It's actually really good as an assistant to help me improve my work as a writer.
Exactly.
If we're looking at AI in terms of assistance, I think then that's what it's intended for. It's not there to replace humanity. It's there to assist humanity. And
yes, that's the main thing. I think, that's where we have to draw the line. If it starts replacing people, then you've got to go, hang on a minute, what's going on here? But as long as it's using, so for example, at the moment, my audiobook producer, he's actually really excited with AI, because that's where I'm getting my information from, by the way. So he's always on the phone to me at the moment. Oh, I'm learning this about, and now because before he couldn't take the actual dictations, because the dictations were, a lot of my clients are, as I said, they're using just Zoom, so they're not using a professional microphone, or they're using Otter app. Again, it's not professional, it's just to take the dictation.
Room acoustics have a lot to do with the quality of sound as well.
Exactly. So that's
I could
why
never record in this space.
Yeah. And that's
So
when we can't use the dictations themselves. So then my clients will then go on to create an audiobook. Then they need to do that separately. And then what my guy does is he's got studios down in London. So people want to go to a studio, they can do that. Or he can send them all the equipment and gives them advice on how to set it up. And he goes through things like acoustics and that sort of thing. And then someone does the recording. But it is a separate step from the dictation step. Whereas
Yes.
what's exciting about this AI that he's looking at is it should be able to clean up the dictations enough and really bring up the quality so the dictations themselves can turn into the audiobook. So we're not exactly sure how that's going to work. We also know that when you're dictating, some of the words might have changed through the editing as well. So we're not sure how it's going to work, but he's excited. He believes he'll be able to drop the price of what he charges me and my clients by 50%. Which then now makes audiobooks accessible to more of my clients, which makes me happy. Got more of my clients having audiobooks out there. So yeah, it's exciting. But yeah, I think with AI, it's always a double-edged sword. On the one hand, you want to make sure it's assisting you, not replacing you or replacing other people. And that's kind of like where the line is, really, isn't it? But thank you for that, Henry Cameron. I appreciate that. I think Martin's kind of complimenting you there in the chat, saying you have a lovely voice for audio.
I thought he was talking about you.
Oh, what are you talking about? No,
that was me. Thank
you. About you.
Thank you.
We seem to have lost Corinda, so hopefully you'll come back. So another question you had was you said self-promotion, ebooks versus paperback books. We always recommend you do both. In fact, I insist on my clients, they always publish both. The reason why is you need the ebook version, Kindle or whatever you want to call it, because it's so accessible. People can it's cheap as well. You can offer your Kindle. For example, my book, my paperback book costs around about £6 for Amazon to print and send out. Therefore, I have to charge at least £6. In fact, Amazon won't even allow me to charge less than that. They won't allow me to make a loss. So I have to charge, whereas my ebook, I can give away for 99 pence if I wanted. And on Kindle, you can even do free promotions. So every 90 days, I can give away my ebook for free for 5 days. I can do 5 days altogether, or I can split them into 2 and 3 days, or even do 1 separate days on special events, that sort of thing. You can't do that with your paperback book because it's a physical thing that costs money to actually create. So you definitely want the ebook because you can do promotions, Henry Cameron. Like on your birthday, you can say, go and get my Kindle for free, or just for 24 hours on my birthday. Or, when your lovely son, on your lovely son's birthday, or you can do those kinds of things, you just can't do with a paper book. However, sorry, go on.
Oh, go ahead.
However, what some authors, the mistake they make is just go, oh, well, I'll just do ebook then. I'm like, oh God, no. As soon as you just do an ebook, subconsciously, what a lot of your audience is thinking is, oh, it's just another ebook. That's not even a proper author. They don't even see you as a proper author. Okay.
So here's my question about that, and it always comes back to ethics for me. Yes. It is not only costly in money to produce a paper book, it is costly environmentally, and that's a grave concern for me. The carbon footprint of producing paper books is extremely high, not only if you consider the toxic inks that are used to produce them, the paper itself, but also the packaging of the book and the shipping of the book to all corners of the globe, right? So there's a great carbon footprint for not a lot of, I think if there was a great demand where you could somehow offset those environmental costs, right? Shipping in bulk and things like that, then that's one thing, right? If you're doing a mass production that's going to be in every bookstore around the world, that's one thing. But when you're talking about, at least the way I'm looking at it, self-producing, small scale kind of level, it seems to me that the environmental cost isn't worth it. And so what I'm telling you,
it isn't. And that's why I don't. So for example, with my book and all my clients' books, we do not really print. We've never printed loads. I think the most we ever printed, there was one of my clients and he was doing a big event where he was a keynote speaker and he wanted 500 books. So, you know, well, the thing is, I actually set up my clients so they can actually have the conversation with printers. After they work with me, they don't really need me in the loop, to be honest.
Right.
So they can
Right.
go do that. Well, I'm glad you asked this question. Amazon have a very checkered history with ethics and sustainability.
Yeah.
However, I have to sing their praises on their KDP book department. You know, they were the ones who really invented the idea of print on demand. So what I mean by having a paperback book is you can have a paperback book on Amazon. So for example, my paperback book is right now on Amazon. It's not like they have a warehouse full of my books ready to go. It's print on demand. So literally someone has to buy the paperback book and they literally just print that one and they send it to them. Not only that, their carbon footprint is quite small, simply because they have a network of independent printers in all the countries that they operate in. So say for example, you went and bought my book right now from Amazon, Henry Cameron, what will happen is they will find a printer that's nearest to you. They'll notify that printer prints it out and then sends it over to you. So it's not even though I'm in the UK and it's a British book, the book is not going from the UK to where you are in Europe. It's be someone in Europe that's actually printing out, actually in your country. Are you still in Spain? You're in Spain?
I am, yeah.
Yes, I remember you being in, I was thinking Spain or Portugal, but you're in Spain. They'll have a printer near you in Spain who will print out just that one lonely book and send it over to you. So there is no warehouse of my books anywhere.
But that also increases the cost of the book itself, right?
Yes, and this is why you need the ebook for each. So I always tell my clients you need the ebook for each, but then you have the paperback version because that is what gives you credibility. You have to remember now we live in a world where you can go on any website and there's some downloadable book that you can, you know, give the email and you'll get a downloadable book. It's just not seen as credible now. But when people see, okay, next to the ebook, they say, okay, there's a proper professionally produced book here. That's when they see you as a proper author. And that's what you need. If you're looking for personal branding, to be seen as a thought leader, to be seen as an expert on a particular topic, you need that credibility. And an ebook on its own is not going to give you the credibility. Having said that, people see that and they still go and buy the ebook, and it's fine. I'd say more than 90% of the sales of my book is ebook, not paperback. Hardly any paperbacks are sold.
Yeah, I mean, people have been when I respond when people say, "Is there a paper version?" and I tell them that I'm trying to be environmentally responsible and et cetera, everything I explained, and this is why, and maybe at a later date I will be producing it. You know, if there's enough demand, then I'll consider producing a paper version.
Ebook, I will come to you, Martin, because I'm mindful that you've had your hand up for a while, but let me just finish this. Just a question here, Henry Cameron. Your ebook, where is it at the moment? Is it on Amazon?
I have it in 3 places. I did it through Kindle.
Okay.
Right. And that was easy. It was awesome. It was streamlined. It was, you know, very well held, I felt. I also did it through Barnes & Noble because I know that they're a massive bookseller. So I have it on Nook as well. And then I also have it direct from author because I know that I stand to personally generate more income for myself if people buy it directly from me.
Absolutely.
And, you know, I'm not worried about royalties. I'm not worried about getting, you know, 30 cents from selling an ebook through one of the other providers. Then they can come to me. 100% of the funds come to me. And I know that the people who know me want to support me that way as well. And so I have a dedicated website for the book. It's a book and workbook companion. And people can choose what, you know, there are 3 options basically.
I think where I got confused is the steps that my clients go through is they usually write using Word or Google Docs, whichever one they prefer. Then it goes to the editor. My editors prefer Word, but they can use Google Docs, but they just edit it on the Google Doc or Word document. And then when it goes to the typesetter, the typesetter creates they use something called Adobe InDesign, which is the industry standard for book formatting and design. So they will put it through Adobe InDesign and they will design the interior layout of the book.
Yeah.
That is essentially what becomes the paperback book. The next step after that is it becomes formatted for Kindle. So it's kind of like I'm kind of thinking because you said, oh, I will introduce the paperback. It's like you should already have the paperback because even though you haven't uploaded, so you must have. We'll talk about this another time because it means you've done it in a very different way to the steps that. The way my steps work and the way my team work is the paperback is created first for that to become the Kindle. So you can't have the Kindle unless you already have the paper. Even if you don't upload it, it's
Kindle does their own formatting, as does Barnes and Noble. So they'll format it to their machine, and then I have a PDF that I've created myself.
Yeah.
So I wanted to give people a variety of options depending on their own preferences, and
Okay. We'll talk a little bit more about this regarding because that's interesting. I'm not aware of that. It must be maybe Kindle now have you can just literally feed in the document and they just create the Kindle from that, which is great. But we would never the paperback we always create first, and then the Kindle takes from the paperback. So
that's their EPUB.
Yes, EPUB. Yes.
Yeah. I did that version as well, but they each have their own thing. Go ahead, Martin. I don't want to
monopolize sorry.
All right. Thank you for inviting me. It's just to say how really important that third stage is in the process, because I find the second or third draft is always much better and much tighter than the first.
Yeah.
And put simply, if you can tell a 4-line paragraph in 3 lines, you're cutting 25% of fat out of your book, and it becomes a much tighter, more digestible narrative.
Yeah, thanks for that. And I think that's all what the last bit I was saying in my slides, that's what editors are great at. They're great at getting twice as much power in your words with less words. That's what a great editor does. But they're only able to do that if you do that tidying up for them. Otherwise, they spend all their time just doing the tidying up. And that's why I use the analogy of the cleaners. And something I say, because a lot of people, do kind of push back on me with this, because well, why do I have to find my grammatical errors? And why do I have to? That's an editor's job. It's like, yes, it is. If you want it to be, they can just do that. But if you could just read it out loud, if you can just block just an afternoon where you can just read out your manuscript aloud and just, I'm not saying find every single grammatical issue. That's not your job. The editor will do that. But if you can just clean it up somewhat before it gets to them, then they can really do things like what you just said, Martin, which is really focus on the words and really make them shine. And what I mean by making them shine is making the words, they're cutting down words, and yet it actually becomes even more powerful. And that's what people need, especially nowadays. I found out, I think a couple of years ago, that the average human has an attention span of 7 seconds now. I think a goldfish has an attention span of 9 seconds. So we're worse than goldfish now when it comes to our attention kept in one place. So people don't want to read books that look like a huge encyclopedia that you have to break open. They want something they can look at and go, yeah, I can. Most people love the fact that they can just get on a flight with my book. I have people who've just gone on the plane for 3 or 4 hours and they've read my book. The book is done. They've consumed it, and now they can go off and do what they need to do and implement the things that they've learned in my book. That makes me feel happy. Now, I could have just waffled on and created a book that takes them 9-10 hours, but they won't get through the book usually. Then that's the issue. So yeah, very, very good point. Thank you for that, Martin. Okay, well, oh my God, I've just realized we've gone well over time. Must be having too much fun speaking to you guys. But I hope you got a lot from today. I really appreciate you coming. Hope you got I haven't heard much from you, Alan, today, but we do speak a lot anyway. So I hope you got something from it. Stanley as well. Thank you, Martin, for coming, and Henry Cameron. You actually made it on time. I'm so happy. I felt bad last week because you turned up for the last 4 minutes. It's like, yeah,
I know.
closing things down now. I can't really talk much more. But I hope that's helped you regarding. I completely understand the paperback book. I do get it. It seems like you've done a different sequence. So then it's going to cost you time and energy and money to create the paperback. So you have to now sit there and think, is it worth it? So I absolutely get that. It's just the sequence that my clients go through. We create the paperback first, and then the Kindle builds on the paperback. So there wouldn't
Well, I
even.
figure it gives me an opportunity to educate people about environmental concerns and carbon footprints and all of that,
Yeah.
you know. And so far the response has been positive. I get to be the one not to bend to convention, but to actually
That's actually
educate
quite good. I
people.
like how you've done that. I always say you can always, you know, we have the term in the UK, spin doctors. They're not really nice people, but it's like, you know, they're able to take anything negative and spin it around and make it positive. But it's actually, you know, what you're doing is you're taking something negative and turning it into a positive. So I actually quite like that. So well done for that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stanley. Okay, so was there any final thoughts before we go? No, well, thank you so much for coming today. I really, really appreciate it, and hopefully see you at a future forum. Bye for now. Have a lovely rest of the week.
Nice
Bye.
to meet you all.